Hey everyone, so turned on audio, just doing a check that that's good, and yeah, let's see how this goes. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm good. I don't know why. I was like, is that a rhetorical question?
No, not rhetorical. I sincerely care about you. We're friends. I want to know that you're doing well. Oh, fun times, fun times. Yeah, let's just make sure audio's well before we jump into and doing all the intro and then having to do it again for the second time. So if someone's in the chat, let us know. Normally, the person who lets us know right away is Steven, but Steven's on our stream tonight. Welcome, Steven.
I'm right here, and I sound great.
Yeah, you do.
But it's hard to tell because the stream is muted because it was weird to hear our voices continuously.
All right. So I figure for tonight, yes, Steven sounds wonderful. We've got people from all platforms joining us, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have questions that you want addressed in today's chat about the upcoming pitch contest, then make sure you're putting it out there. Alex is monitoring the chat, so we'll go from there. So what's on our plate for today? Today we're talking to Steven about his win from April's pitch contest. We're going to be answering any questions that people have about May's pitch contest, and then we're going to go into some of the ideas that have already been submitted. So there's some on Facebook, and we might jump into Reddit if we have time. But let's start with last month's contest. So Steven, what are your feelings? What was your initial sentiment about last month's contest?
I thought it was fun. I was able to be creative with my submissions, and I saw so many other submissions that were just think about stuff like that in Genesis in the past. Now I'm thinking almost anything's possible in the future.
Nice. I think one of the things that I love seeing from a contest like this is the fact that when I first brought Genesis to the market, one of the things that made me confident that the game would succeed is when so many people would play it and say to me, oh, this is a great concept, you should do this, you should do that. And it just showed me that not only did I see an endless future for the game, but so did the people who played. And then seeing this contest, it shows me that people were thinking of way cooler ideas than what I had originally planned. So I'm really grateful to see this happen. And if I haven't said it out loud before, congratulations fully and thoroughly for winning the contest.
Thank you very much. Job. Thank you.
All right, Alex, any questions that you have for Steve?
Are we going into questions asking about your design? Yeah. Okay, well, let's start with, out of your original 10 pitches, what was your favorite, Steve?
My favorite?
Yeah.
Weirdly, I think it's the first one I did, which was the Jeweled Beguiler. That one, it felt like, to me, it was something I would want to play that wasn't necessarily just puppet control. Mm-hmm. And also gave, like, its original design was a low chance of getting a big thing for a low cheat card. Mm-hmm. In the end, it still became something that was much better balanced than I was able to make it, and originally, and looked like it had a good chance of actually being in the game sometime in the future.
Just for the people who are watching and may not know, do you want to give a summary of Jeweled Beguiler? Where did the concept come from, and what you turned it into?
Well, the Jeweled Beguiler was based off the Emerald Cockroach Wasp, which...
Google search this.
Yeah, Google search this. Or Jeweled Wasp, Emerald Jeweled Wasp. It has different names. Basically, it's a wasp that hunts down and not quite kills cockroaches, but fills it with venom, which makes the cockroach extremely pliable to makes it a zombie, and then it uses that living incubator to lay its eggs. So turning it into a card, I figured this would be probably a much bigger version of the insect, and you could see the sort of art piece I used there about 5 seconds ago, and turned it into sort of a creature that will let you take over another creature. Mm-hmm. I originally thought in my head maybe you have it turning into an enchantment that basically takes over the creature, but it was a little clunky. So in the end, and after a little bit of tuning, it became what it was. So as long as it got the kill on something, you gain control of a healthy version of that target.
Nice. Yeah. I've actually researched that creature before, just briefly, and the animal kingdom is just really, really messed up. So,
it's creepy.
I love it though. Like it's one of those things that makes me really excited to design summons, because there's so much out there that I don't think we ever explore in these games, and I think you brought a really cool concept to life when you designed that card, and maybe we'll see something like that in the future.
Well, it will be kicking around in the future if there's a space for it.
So, in the same vein, what was your design, your thought process for Encased in Stone? How did you come up with this idea? What's kind of the flavor behind it?
Well, originally it was supposed to be a little deep, such as imprisoning like a political prisoner in possibly like a castle or a tower or somewhere, and to free it, its allies would have to basically raid that castle or tower or destroy it. Mm-hmm. It's also similar to other games which have the ability to say petrification or like stunning or paralyzing a creature. Only in this case, it's encasing them in stone. And because right now the best stone in the game is fortification, that's the card I was using as the imprisonment. And I still wanted to give the ability for the creature to come back. I wanted to give its owner a choice. Do you now try to continue the game with one of your summons practically removed from play, while also running into an obstacle in the game that you weren't expecting? Or do you try to take out that obstacle and recover a little bit of your investment? Because when you pay a good 20 to 30 aura on something, you kind of want to have it stick around.
Yeah. Now, I've got a question for Alex. When we talked about Will's submission for the ooze, this was an idea of 3 different creatures that were tied together, and it was conceptually one submission, but it had to be broken down into 3 parts. Encased in Stone here, it's a single card, but yet it needs a second part to it to still function. What makes this different than the ooze? How come this could go through the contest where the ooze had to be separated? And maybe this could answer people's question if they want to design something similar to this in a future contest.
Simple answer: Steve tricked us.
What?
He put an old card name on the card, and we just went, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Yep. Just need one of those like the Family Guy moments though. What?
Yeah, so honestly, realistically, you're all right. Technically, it does require 2 cards, but I think because he didn't specify what that second card was, for us, we just know it has to be an alteration. Where the Will one was, this is a specific creature that then brings out this specific creature that then brings out this specific creature. Yeah. So each of those are required for the following one. where Steve Moore went, this requires an alteration.
Yes. And this allows us, from the design perspective, that, yeah, there's fortification in there, but it can essentially be anything. I was actually thinking a really cool alteration could be one that's like 6 health, and it has replicate itself as the alteration. And then that way you have a reason to both put it into your deck or keep it in your forethoughts for Encased Stone. But that's something we can get to in the future. Now let's talk about, I want to talk about some niche plays with this card. I've mentioned it before multiple times, the idea of if you have Purifying Wave in your hand and then you draw Encased Stone, you can Encased Stone one of your own summons, play Purifying Wave, and then have your summon back, where you have a summon on the arena where your opponent doesn't. And when the summon comes back, it's just return the summon back to its original spot. It doesn't say anything about exerting them. So technically that summon comes back, and if it's not exerted, then, you know.
I don't remember, but I think the original concept might have had an exert.
Okay.
And also the original concept had the fortification set to the hit points of the creature.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Purifying Wave doesn't matter that.
Yeah, it doesn't
much.
care.
So
it's a honey badger.
That's one. The other thing I notice here is when fortification is destroyed, but if you bounce fortification back, then that summon that was removed from Encased Stone never comes back. Is that intentional?
Well, it is now. But there's currently is no bounce backs for fortifications, I believe, or not
For
fortifications, alterations. Not
Tech.
yet.
Yeah.
But when the time comes, if that is going to be a thing in the future, I might want it reworded as when this fortification is removed from play.
Now, how do you feel about that, Alex?
About that, well, we have to do the testing and finalizing of the card. Once it's finalized, there's not going to be changes once it goes down.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're still in that process, so there's still potential for those changes at that time.
Now you have to create a test card that removes alterations just to make sure it's tested properly.
Well, specifically, it bounces alterations back to...
Yeah.
That's a very interesting card.
So it's actually one of those niche edge cases that I would love to see maintained here, is the idea that if you can create this synergy, then you can permanently kill summons with Encased Stone. Worse than kill them, you are sending them to the subconscious. You can't even...
Yeah.
It doesn't even trigger resurrect, right? So it's a little bit worse than just straight out killing a summon. And then the other side to it is, once you return that fortification or whatever the alteration is back to your hand, you can now play it normally and do other stuff with it. So there's more, it's a little bit more of a fun synergy, and that's one of those things I'd love to keep or maintain with this card.
So Steve, you're gonna, for the next contest, you're gonna put a alteration bouncing effect in the 6G slot.
I mean, there could be a way to do it.
Yeah.
If I have to make a subset all myself by wins, I will try.
Now, you went up against some pretty interesting opponents. Like you had Divine Blast of Blank in the first round, and then Divine Deluge in the second, and Bursting Tendrils. At any of those points, how confident were you that you were going to win in those situations?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go to Facebook just so I could see the order of that I was placed in on them. Give me 1 second. There we go. So for Encased Stone, the Divine Blast was a cool little blast spell that was paying homage to a certain rabbit. So I couldn't argue with it.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a bit of a fight. Divine Deluge, I don't remember it being like, it's not that I wasn't worried, it's that I didn't feel like they were similar enough for a contest between the two to not be fair, but be equal, which is a weird way to say it. Bursting Tendrils was after I started reading the card, I realized it is a cheaper Hurricane Spin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Hurricane Spin that you can tailor to how you want it to hit.
Yeah.
And I think that was one that I was a little worried about. And then it finalized with, what did it finalize with? Angelic Runes. I liked Angelic Runes.
Yeah.
Again, it's an alteration that helps with zoning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite sure how it worked with angels. Was it able to stop angels? Because technically, Angel was a summon.
No, it didn't. So the actual text on Angelic Runes was the spots adjacent to it occupied the spots for summons without flying, and that didn't need to be on there because summons with flying could go into occupied spots.
You see, if it was worded in such a way that it said summons cannot move onto these spots, then it would have basically summon immunity in that.
But the intention was to allow flying.
Like, they were all good cards. I think the one I feared the most was the Burning Tendrils or Bursting Tendrils.
Yeah.
For that card specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of these cards, I would love to see those for, Maze contests or any future contests, because a lot of these ideas that were submitted. All right, cool. Alex, any thoughts on your end?
I was just going to say a little tidbit for anybody who doesn't know Steve. For me, Steve is the alteration guy. Whenever he gets a chance, he tries to make a deck around alterations. I know his first deck was nothing but walls.
Yeah.
I think it's yet to succeed except for one, I think like an early game against a newer player where you trap them in 4 walls.
That's how I was introduced into the game itself. At the believe it was BreakCon or BreakoutCon.
Oh, it was
Okay. Yeah. The deck I had
I don't remember the name.
Was it 12 or was it the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so long ago. It's like just after
deck that I was playing had fortification. Maybe I can run. That gives you an advantage above the opponent. Watching Yu-Gi-Oh, I finally thought I almost knew it's easy. It makes sense. No one ever screwed up in Magic. So.
I want to jump over to talking about the May talk about here. We'll come back and celebrate your victory some more, but the May contest, there's a new registered card, must be a 6-chi card. Looking for a Jalara 6-chi, a Bellum, Thymos, Axon, unique. Alex, what's your
immediately came forward?
Steve, sorry.
Go ahead, Steve. What's your favorite 6G? Well, I think.
For the longest time, pretty.
Yeah, that's one now.
Yeah, because I used to play. I would still be playing Nubia a lot, and Chrono Walker is pretty much a staple in most Axon-based decks.
Yeah.
That I've made.
Yeah. So 6Gs, they're very, very interesting and very difficult to design, in my opinion, because of the fact that you can 2-for-1 them when you're designing your deck. You can put in 2 6Gs and 1 3-chi to balance them out, which means that they're one of the few cards that you can really flood your deck with. So making a well-balanced 6G is a lot harder than I think most players think it would be. And so I just want to put that out there. When it comes to designing things, you're looking for really cool cards. You got to think about the balance, and just think of some of those iconic 6G. Alex gave a good list here: Giant Scorpion, Necrolich, Chrono Walker, Hurricane Sweep, High Duelist, Puppet Control. These are all great cards. I feel like there's an affiliation missing. No, you got all of them. Just that
all of them. It feels that way when I did that exact same thing. But there was a question that I will answer for the chat. I tried to message, but for some reason the message didn't go through. The question was, what about colorless? So when we say Jalara, that is our colorless.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, the other question was affiliationless. That is the closest thing to affiliationless, but Jalara kind of counts as affiliation.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And so in Jalara, there are 2 decent 6G cards. The first one that most people think of would be Urticating Tarantula because it's the budget giant scorpion. But Colossal Ant is also really interesting and really fun 6G, especially if you're playing drafts. Definitely a card I like there.
So Sean had a question. He says, do they have to be rare power level? No.
So, no. And rarity is an interesting thing. I did a talk about this. I think Alex and I have not very different philosophies about rarity, but they do differ a little bit. But I don't believe a card's design immediately dictates its rarity. Two people could look at the same card. One person can say it's a rare. The other person will say it's an uncommon. There's a lot more factors that go into it. There are some cards that are obviously rares, but then there's other cards that don't always fit that profile. And rarity also, it's a weird determining factor in the game. It's not as straightforward as I thought it was when I started designing Genesis.
So we got a shout out here for Azrael's favorite 6G. Malevolent Spirit is best boy, he says.
Yeah, the Spirit's definitely an interesting card, and I'm happy that someone gave a shout out to it because the Spirit is the first artwork for Genesis ever, and it makes me happy.
So I have a quick question.
Yep.
What would my card be, rare or uncommon?
Well,
I see it. I think it probably would have been uncommon.
So,
but when I was creating cards, I wasn't thinking about its rarity level, because to me, rarity level isn't necessarily power level. It could just mean, like niche possibility cards, like cards that have a specific use, but aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily fit the uncommon.
Yeah. First off, I'll say to everyone who's designing cards for the pitch contest, do not think about rarity when it comes to designing the card. Design the card to the awesomeness that you want to design it. Rarity will come later. Alex, when it comes to rarity, what are the things you think about? Like when it comes to Encased in Stone, what are your kind of criteria?
So let's bring up Encased in Stone. So it's actually going to be connected to the whole set, but more specifically, the affiliation gets put into the whole pile of cards. So how we work, and if you're part of Future League, you know this more than other, is that once the set is locked, pretty much art is done. And if we have enough time for this, we hand over sort of the card list to select Future Leaguers to be like, what do you predict the rarity of these cards are? And then we take all that data, including our own data where we perceive the rarity is, and we sort of tally it up, and we can see what people want to get the most, what they believe the power level is the most powerful, like that. So it's not just, no, this card was designed, it's a rare. Now, sometimes you get, I don't know, I guess Zambra Dragon, I guess you just see it and it's just like, wow, look at that. Big flying area, long area range, 6 health. That's a rare.
Yeah. So,
but,
yeah. The way I look at it, and so I had to do the same thing when I did software testing, is there are parts of the decision-making process that are subjective. It's an emotional feel, and that's what you're talking about with the Zambra Dragon. You just look at it, and you feel it, and you're like, that card needs to be a rare. Realistically, if you were to take that card and like ignore the card typing or the artwork or anything like that, and just look at it holistically, does it need to be a rare? It could probably sit in the uncommon slot.
I would agree. Easily that could be an uncommon.
Just because it's a dragon, you're like, it needs to be a rare. Like, there is the emotional part of it, the subjective part, and then there's the objective part, the collecting data, and even that can lead you astray. Because there's times where you look at the card and objectively it says it should be a rare, but does it? And an example of that, and this is one of my big rarity mistakes with Welcome to Jaelara, Malicious Persuasion. When you looked at it objectively using analytics, you would say this card looks like it should be a rare, but realistically the card plays better as an uncommon because you need them in bulk. You need to be running 8, to 9 of them in your deck to really feel the value of it. And that card should have been uncommon. If I were to redesign Welcome to JLR, I would have put that card as uncommon. So there's a lot of learnings that we're getting with each set. For me personally, Encased in Stone, I would so the alteration that it creates obviously has to be a common, so that you can have enough of them to play the Encased in Stone. I would actually kind of like to see this card at the common slot.
Really? I think looking at it, for me, it feels uncommon. For me, it definitely feels
it's
uncommon.
At that border. So if it's in Bellum, definitely I see it in the uncommon slot. And, yes. So this is the thing. Bellum traditionally does not. It has an overall spectrum of being okay, but it very rarely has cards that percolate to being the top spots. So if it's in Bellum, this card's definitely going to be sitting at an uncommon. But if it's sitting in, let's say, Axon, there's a decent chance this might be teetering between that common and uncommon slot.
Very fair. We got another shout out. Favorite 6 chief from Darren, Decoy Rabbit.
The Decoy Rabbit.
Don't tell JC. I began to like Decoy Rabbit.
I think JC's watching.
JC, you didn't hear that.
Okay, so when it comes to understanding the affiliations, one thing I would say, Alex did a great job at saying, if you do not know what the affiliation of the card should be, then leave it blank and we'll reach out to you, or we'll start having that conversation in your submitted post about we feel that it should go under this affiliation. But there's a description here on the site of the different affiliations. Also, if you jump under lore, and I think on here there is the affiliations of Genesis, and you should be able to go into there and just jump between what the different affiliations. Again, this is a high level description, but it gives you some idea. And then also look at what are the other cards that are in that affiliation. Not all of them are perfectly placed, and the reason why we don't have like a very clean outline of the affiliations is because we're still learning and developing them ourselves. Don't be afraid to put it under an affiliation, and just because you feel it needs to go there, we'll respect that. We'll also ask you, hey, have you thought about placing this under a different affiliation? But if all your ideas, just say all 12 ideas you want to submit are for Axon, we're only going to pick 2 of those 12. You don't get extra submissions under one affiliation just because you didn't submit for the others.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
So, and then the last thing, the timeline here. So, as of today, technically is the end of the setup and QA. If you have any questions, make sure we update this site for you. The veto list is on this page for anyone who's looking for that, but it really just comes out to 2 things. Don't make a card that at the end of the day you pull off, like we call this in the back end the Exodia effect. You don't want to have a series of cards that are just like, oh, I get this card and win the game immediately. Like, we still want to play a game. And then the last thing is pulling cards from memories. Because of the energy aspect of the game, we don't want to make it too easy to manipulate the memories. So for now, we're avoiding those. But that's the veto list, the timeline. End of today, the QA. We want to answer all the questions you have about this process. Then submissions technically start today, but some people were submitting yesterday.
That's fine.
Yeah. I do have a question. Little bit of personal clarification for the memories. The memories rule here. My question is, what if the card in the memories is not going into play? What if the card is going into subconscious? It's never re-entering play, but it may have an effect on something in play.
I know what Steve's talking about. Steve, it's probably best to just say your idea to fully explain it rather than.
Okay. My idea is either a creature or an enchantment that if a previous creature of the same type has already been played and is now in the memories, it allows you to cast a current version of that creature with an added ability.
So like Baroque without Blitz, Baroque without Blitz, but if there's a Baroque already in the memories, when you play it, it gains Blitz.
Then it gains Blitz.
I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
It's a weird spot. That's what I said to him.
Yeah.
My initial gut is to go with. I'm hesitant to move forward with that. I would. So here's the big issue with a lot of the cards that are in the pitch contest compared to cards that we design on the game design front. When we have the game design cards, we can just throw things into Future Leagues and get them tested. With the pitch contest, it doesn't get to Future League until it's done going through the contest. And that's kind of the hesitation and the reservation there. The other part to it is how do you price a card like that? Because you just say it's Baroque. Baroque costs 15 aura.
Yeah.
So Baroque without Blitz, let's say hypothetically costs 10. Baroque with Blitz costs 15. So this summon should technically cost somewhere in between. But where? Because with energy, you can make that attribute of getting that creature into your discard relatively easy and at very little cost to you. But then it could also, so you want it closer to the 15 end, but then it doesn't seem like it's worth it. You rather just consistently have Baroque, which you know will guarantee you the Blitz no matter the situation.
Right.
So,
but it might be something that isn't necessarily following the same rules as Blitz is always in Thymos, right?
Yeah.
So as long as I can submit something, I probably would submit it and still, and if it was like disallowed or if it was disqualified for just coming too close, I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
As long as I guess that's my challenge, and for anyone's challenge who's trying to not skirt the rules but bend reality as we know it. It's our job to see if we can make something that not only follows your rules there, but also is priced properly, is fun, doesn't overpower the game, and maybe brings something new to it.
I would say go for it, submit it, put your second idea for that same affiliation as one that's like, if you're gonna have one that tests the water, maybe have your second one that doesn't. So you're at least a little bit more confident that if this one gets vetoed, at least your other one has a higher chance of getting in.
I got 12 chances. I've got good
but
chances.
That's only 2 per affiliation. So if that's one of your, just say, Bellum ideas, then your second Bellum idea, play on the safe side.
But if we keep playing safe, we're never going to make anything great.
Safe in the regards of the veto list.
Sorry, continue.
With this contest specifically, I will say we're going to be extra stickler about this one. Compared to, so last month was your chance to put in ridiculous things, and it was more likely to get on there. But without spoiling stuff, which we will say closer to the end of the contest, we're going to be very stickler about this one. Or should we say that stuff now?
Go for it.
Okay. These 6 winners will not be going into Invasion, which is the upcoming set. Sorry, Steve, that's where Encased in Stone is going. But these 6 winners are going into the very next set, Origins. There is very little time for us for Future League. As soon as they're won, they're going into Future League right away, and it's going to be extreme testing. There's very little time.
Yeah. So if you really want to see one of your card ideas come out in the set sooner rather than later, this is the contest.
So no pressure.
No pressure.
So that's actually a good tip. Don't do the Steve trick, because there ain't spots to add a second card for your cards.
Ooh. Okay.
I couldn't put in Encased in Stone. I don't have a second slot to make an alteration for you.
Yep.
Yep.
That's very true.
That's why with the same trick, I gave the list of the element types on there, and I have seen some people put the holy in the dark, and those are indeed facts, the right types for those affiliations. But I put that on there because perhaps the theme of the set doesn't have many else of that kind on there. I wouldn't disqualify a card for having the wrong damage type. I wouldn't have a problem with that going in. It's more of a high suggestion. Yeah.
For these affiliations, Jaylara is definitely one of the more challenging ones because it needs to be neutral. It's weird. It's the flavorless affiliation, and that's hard to design for. Bellum, I focus more on order, but yes, faith, life work in the perfectly. Thymos, emotion. Axon, knowledge. I don't know. Axon's weird. Axon has
very weird.
Axon has too much flexibility. We want to limit that, but I would, if people started pitching ideas under space and time, I think I would enjoy that more. Phage, explore it, go crazy, because Phage I think has a lot of really cool opportunities. But if anything, I would love to see a lot more infection stuff show up, and then in chaos, death. That would be really cool.
Just death.
Just death.
Just death.
So what you're saying is you don't want a Scheherazade style card in Exxon. That is, put the game aside and start a new game with the deck you have.
Oh.
You don't want that? Okay, you don't want that. Got it.
Okay, so way back in the day, this is a complete tangent story, but when I first started designing the prequel to Genesis, which was a game called Origins, there were a card type called Ripples, and Ripples were these like big, powerful spells that just did crazy things in the game. And one of them was called Reset, and it literally reset the game. And it was just such a bad idea for a card, because games just went on forever. Like, you were 30 minutes into the game, you're just about to beat your opponent, and he's like, reset. And then you go back to your starting health, back to the starting positions, start playing all over again. It was just such a bad idea.
Oh.
Alright, so for the timeline, one thing we learned from last month's contest was we needed a bit of a gap between when the submissions were due to when we started doing the voting. So from the 15th to the 23rd, that's when I want to say we, but realistically Alex will be spending time talking to the finalists, going over their ideas, and just kind of cleaning everything up. And hopefully we're also going to spend some time templating these cards, so when you go to vote, you can actually see how these cards will look on using the Genesis templates.
For sure. Steve, how was it working with me? Not that you've never done that before, but
working with you was a great experience, and I would like to do it again. No, it was awesome.
Noted for all your submissions.
Yeah, it was awesome because you helped me tune some of the cards or some of my submissions, and the ones that you felt were good, you just let it go, and I was glad for the help and the assistance, and seeing the way the process goes, even like in the past, is always an interesting experience for me. Usually a good one.
And that's something I really want to emphasize. So if you have ideas that you're iffy on, feel free to private message me, Alex, Lionel, Carl, JC. I'm gonna put them out there. They're gonna get random private messages from people, but anyone who's worked on Genesis as a game designer, get their feedback if you want it, right? Use this opportunity. Think of us as like TAs, right? We're here to help and support, and we can help clean up your ideas a little bit, help with the wording, give you suggestions on names of cards, whatever you need. So don't think that, if you submit your idea to us prematurely, it's gonna hinder your opportunities in the contest. We want everyone to just have fun and have the best chance that they can in winning it. So
yeah, 3 people already have contacted me.
Yeah.
3 people, they've told me what they had. One of them I said, don't submit this one. He said, I'm going to submit it anyways. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, no lies. I did. I said, this card already exists. Don't submit it.
Yeah. We did this last time where Alex, JC, and myself, we sat down, went through all the submissions, and started cutting things and moving things forward. And I think we're probably going to do the same thing again. So feel free to reach out. JC, if you're watching, feel free to make yourself available to people who want to talk to you about ideas. And I'm also available. Most people know how to get a hold of me one way or another. Speaking of the voting's going to be interesting. We're going to, for each day, the 24th to the 29th, there will be a poll with 6 ideas up. All 6 ideas are going to go up at the same time, and you can vote across the ideas. This time, we are going to... I don't know, Alex, how do you feel? Should people be able to vote for multiple things per a day, or can they only vote for one idea?
I have no problem with them voting for multiples. I don't. Okay. But don't vote for them all, because then
yeah.
Everybody votes for them all. It's going to be perfect. Right? Well, it won't, because I'll just vote for one.
That's true. That is another thing. Alex and I do vote on the ideas, but it doesn't necessarily mean our ideas will win. Right?
And the person with the Genesis symbol, that's not us.
Yes.
That's a crazy guy. Don't worry about his votes.
I really got to message him, don't I? Yes, if you see the Genesis logo voting for something, that's not the Genesis game. It's someone whose Facebook profile picture is the Genesis logo.
Jeffrey made a suggestion, but I don't think it's possible. He said, can we do ranking votes where people are allowed to vote 1 through 6, which makes sense. But I don't think the platforms have that voting system.
Unfortunately, we are very hindered to what Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon have available in their poll system. So that's why we're limiting it down to 6, because Reddit only allows you to put 6 options in your poll.
After all, we're not saying you can vote multiple times for the same thing. You could vote for up to if there's 6 entries, you could technically vote for all 6, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Sorry. Continue.
Right, yeah. So that's everything that we have when it comes down to the May contest. And we will update this page with the description with what we talked about today. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some ideas submitted. Do we want to jump over and check out some ideas already?
Yeah, let's check out some ideas. We don't want to do a Google poll because we want to allow our various platforms to do their jobs, I guess is the best way to say it.
So just so there's transparency between us and our community, I think it's fair to say one of the big things we're looking at is we know that the community who plays this game loves this game. We know you love talking about it, but one of the big issues we have when we talk to new stores, new communities, is that no one's seeing the community talk about the game. We're not showing our passion and our love for the game to the world. So having a contest like this allows us to create Facebook posts. So this post alone already has 27 comments. The mega thread for this month's contest has 27 comments. This helps show stores and other people out there that the community is passionate and excited about it. So create content, show people how much you love this game, and it'll help grow the game across North America and the rest of the world. So first idea that's up there, Jeffrey has submitted Conjecture Proteus again. But slight modification is to 5 cards. That way there's always a forced odd number to one of the piles.
The weird thing about since Jeffrey here, and we know Jeffrey, we talked to him last time. Now I can badmouth him as much as I want. I've seen his face.
This is the big difference between the two of us. I would never do that. I'm like, oh, I got to know you, and now I'm less likely to say that.
I don't know why. I don't like 5 cards. I understand the reasoning behind it.
So what if it's 6?
Oh God, I think the more it goes, the less I like it. I feel like the power level is just creeping and creeping up. Like I understand the 5, and it's more about testing. It's actually probably fine. It's that I think it's the fact that the original pitch was 4, and now you're like, but now it's 5.
But I think we're now increasing the chi, right, to make it settle in the 6 chi slot. Because if you think of 4 cards at 6 chi, on average you're drawing 2 cards. So you're thinking of this as like a slightly better dedicated studies. Would you really run that at 6 chi?
That's true.
But now
Jeffrey says he's driving, he can't rebut.
But with 5 cards, hopefully you're getting 3 cards out of it. So now the question is this better? Is this a 6 chi card? Because at 3 cards, you're getting closer to that Epiphany range.
You're getting close to that Epiphany, yeah. It's interesting.
So
Jeffrey, I wouldn't change it because of my thing. It would still get passed on my end, probably.
What are your thoughts, Steve?
Well, you're never going to cast it enough that you're milling yourself. 5 cards seems like a good number. 3 cards feels like it would be too low. Like he was mentioning, how about 3 cards? 3 cards definitely would feel like it's too low. Now, my assumption is, even though the wording isn't quite there, that the person or the champion who's taken the 5 cards gets to look at them?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
You 5 cards, you look at them, then you put them into 2 different piles.
Yeah.
Assumably 1 with 3, assumably 1 with 2. Could do 4-1.
But then 4-1, even if you get 4 bad cards and you miss out on 1 good card, it's probably the better choice anyway. But with 3 and 2, it's much more of a...
Would you rather have 4 left hooks or 1 bolt shot?
It depends on how surrounded I am.
Depends if I have other cards in my hand that say I can discard cards to do things.
Like if I have 4 skeletons around me, bolt shot's not going to do much.
Fair.
Yeah, I think the 2-3 ratio is probably a better mind game based choice than the 2-2 ratio that a few folks had a little bit of an issue with in the past. So I think the 2-3 was probably a better shot. So 5 to me, 5 cards seems like a little bit raised in power of the card, and it seems like it fits for the 6G.
Now, what I would really love to see is this concept pushed in really a new or some new way, right? Where instead of making it into 2 piles, because this card, we've mentioned it before, last time we talked about Conjecture Proteus, is very similar to Fact or Fiction from Magic, and because of its similarities, it makes me question, could we do things that were different? Instead of having 2 piles, could it say up to 5 piles? So you could have 1 pile of 1, 1 pile of 1, 1 pile of 1, and 1 pile of 2. And then they have to pick a pile, right? Or what happens if instead of putting both piles face down, 1 pile's face up and 1 pile's face down? And then you're like, known information versus unknown information. There's other ways to play with this. I would love to see kind of it pushed a little bit more. But at the same time, this is definitely a very stable option, and I'd love to see this play tested in Future League.
And now it's just given me an idea for a possible card.
All
right.
He's coming for your spot, Jeffrey. He's coming for it.
I'm going to jump into another one of Jeffrey's, and then we'll look into doing someone else's. So I'm going to go with Stalk. Which I don't know if it means like stalking someone or like a stalk of corn.
I think it's stalking someone.
Okay. So 6 chi enchantment, action enchant, aura 14. You may so that's the enchant, and then here's the ability. You may beckon 1 summon per round adjacent to your opponent. And so the comment here, not sure if it's too powerful for turn after turn use like that. Maybe it's a setup that lingers until you use it and then destroys itself instead.
So a one-time enchantment use?
So
that you use when you choose to?
Yeah. So my initial thought is start strong with an idea and then test it down to where it should be instead of weakening it right away. Like try it at a higher level and then see how it feels bringing it down. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's something that could be tested. We've had similar like effects tested before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing
There was the phage one, right? The phage pillar thingy.
Yes.
Yeah, the totem.
The totem.
Something.
Yes.
Now,
join Future League to find out more.
I tested that one out a lot, and it's great when you've got one on the table and the creatures to use for it. It sucks when you have 5 of them in your hand.
Yeah.
Now, here is the interesting part. If you have multiple of these, they stack. So, wait, do they, though? You may beckon 1 summon per round. I would have to
that would say it stacks.
Right?
The wording to me says you may it stacks. Now, if it was worded to say the first summon you beckon each round can be placed on beside the opponent, then it wouldn't stack.
Yeah. So, like, if you had 2 of these out, because these are, I guess, continuous, but both check the may trigger, the way may wording, and then on one of them you say yes, on the other one you say no. On the one you say no to, the next summon it'll ask again, and then you just say yes to it. So yeah, they do stack, which is kind of cool. The one advantage this has over Totem is Totem, you place it, and now if your opponent moves away from that spot, your Totem is less valuable. Here, stock stays relevant no matter where your opponent is. The easy test for this is to see how it works with a Hot Pocket or like a really big blitz summon, and if that really hurts your opponent, like how badly does that hurt your opponent?
Hot Pockets always hurts the opponent.
Always. This reminds me of the very early version of Draco's Cavern. So Draco's Cavern originally said when a summons beckon onto that, they lose 1 health and you remove all exert tokens on them, which in and itself is powerful, but not as deadly as when you realize you combine that with Stone Protector, and then you drop Stone Protector on top of Draco's Cavern. It's not exerted. You drop a Angel on top of the Stone Protector, which loses its exert token, and then Stone Protector teleports the Angel to the other side of the board. And that was pretty devastating. I don't know. This one, I'd be curious, and I think it's a cool concept.
The one thing I think, and irrelevant to Jeffrey's actual, what the card is, I think there is a slight flavor fail, where I'd like to see the flavor, if the flavor was relevant. If this creature is stalking you, I'd like it have to be summoned, not in the awareness. So, like, actually, like, something's behind you. Something's always following you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I could see it, it's just like, it gets summoned, boom, blocks your opponent right in the front. They're not moving forward anymore. They have to deal through it. They get through it. Back next turn, you summon another one right in the front. So it's also both flavor and balancing.
Yeah.
But that's up to you, Jeffrey. I wouldn't. You don't need to change anything because I say things. It's mostly my design mind thinking of other things.
Just don't listen to Alex. Just don't do it.
Listen to me, or else it's not going to the next level. No, I'm kidding.
The one thing that I see is missing from both of these is, what is your intended affiliation for these cards? So if you don't have one, make it explicit that you don't know which affiliation, but we want to see you at least try to put this card under a given affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey, when you have the chance, come back to these and just update them with affiliations. And then I'm gonna grab one of Shahan's at random. Fairsight Fox. So let's check this out. Affiliation Axon. Nice. 4 HP, awareness, front, left, right. So that's the same as Rain. No, that's more than Rain. Oh, the intention is forward, left, right. But yeah, I'm happy you wrote out the grid, Shahan, because it makes it very clear that your intention was Rain's awareness. Action Beckon 16, Swift Cast Exert. Target champion or summon in card name's awareness draws a card if it is the champion. If there is another ability in play when this resolves, instead deal 2 damage to that target.
So,
I think they mean on the stack.
Yeah, they mean on the stack. Yeah, for sure. But I want to start with a standard Shahan comment. Axon getting draw.
Interesting.
Okay, so
I mean, that's where it belongs, or is it?
For those who are newer to the game, there's a common saying in the Future League: whenever an Axon card has draw in it, they get upset that Axon gets more draw.
Yeah. So the intention here, let's break this apart. Target champion or summon in card name's awareness draws a card, if it is a champion. Then the second part is if there is another ability. So if there's another ability on the stack, or if this is not the only ability on the stack, when it resolves, instead deal 2 damage to that target. So the idea is you can target a champion or summon. If you had put another, or anyone put another ability, then you can use this guy to attack for 2 instead of doing the draw.
He has another one with this sort of style ability. Mm-hmm. So what I would actually say is irrelevant to this specific design, but for Shahan, I would separate them. Don't use all your slots on the same ability, because if we don't like the ability once, all of those will crumble.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, I think, a much cleaner one that he's posted, but we're planning to go through them all right now. That's next week's stream.
Mm-hmm. I would say an opportunity here would be, I don't want everyone to always bombard us with edits and things like this, but if you know, like you say here, one of the more awkward templatings open to clean up, if you have a feeling that your card's wording is awkward or you're not confident in how you're approaching doing the wording of your card, feel free to reach out to us and say, this is my intention, I want an ability that does this. How would you recommend I word it? And then that way we can get into an ability that's closer to what we would see on a Genesis card. But conceptually, it's interesting. It's cool that you have this idea, this mechanic that bounces back and forth, where you can either draw the card or deal the damage. Yeah. I like that foxes are also seeing more use in the flavor.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Cool. All right. I think that's time for us. Sorry, what were you going to say, Steve?
It's okay. I was going to say there must always be a balance between rabbit and fox.
So here's the thing. There's so much love in this game for the rabbit or the monkeys. Which side do you rest on this? Are you more the monkeys or are you more onto the rabbits?
Between those two, it's going to be rabbits. But, if the Fox Nation comes up in power, I may have to change allegiances.
What are you, Alex?
You didn't hear that, Darren.
I'm not on either, but I think I am more monkey. I'm somebody who plays the monkeys, where not a lot of people do play the monkey. I give the monkeys respect, is what I would say. But I also think the rabbits are playable, and I give them respect, not just memeable.
I think that's a big thing. So I'm gonna transition over to the closing screen, but we can keep chatting here for a little bit. But I think for me, like when you think of the original monkey that came into the game and the original rabbit, like you had Decoy Rabbit that was the very first, but then when it came to the monkeys, Formosan and Enrage came out at the same time, right? And Enrage, no one played with it, which is a shame because it's a lot more powerful than I think people give it credit for.
I agree.
But Decoy Rabbit had so much more use. Even though Formosan had a lot of love, a lot more people played with Decoy. And that's why I think there's a lot more people who are rooting for the rabbits. And also just how absurd they are. Like you had Decoy, which was just an absurd card to begin with. Ryukyu Rabbit was really weird. It's the only summon that hits for 0. And if someone makes a card for this pitch contest that attacks for 0, I will take it very seriously. And then you had Line Main. Like all of these were just ridiculous creatures. But I think I'm more monkeys. I like Formosan and I like Enrage. They're just so good and so playable.
What about Golden Longer?
No, what's the other? The Gilded Baboon. That's the other one.
Oh, Gilded Baboon. Yes.
The baboon,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, how
that's
could we
just
forget
such
the
a
Gilded
powerhouse.
Baboon?
He's so calming.
Yes, yes. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy, and congrats again for winning the contest and getting your name as a credit on one of the cards coming out for Invasion.
Thank you for having me,
Yeah.
and thank you for the congratulations. It was fun, and I'm looking forward to this next one.
Yeah.
I've got so many ideas.
Awesome. And thank you everyone who watches. Thank you to all our Patreon members, and thank you to everyone who helps make this game have such a great community. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a good one.
The Restream